Welcome, students, to Monk Meditation, the show of monks, by monks, and for monks in the World of Warcraft. Today is October 22nd, 2013. We've had the tanks. We've had the DPS. Now it's time to bring in those who keep them alive. We've got the Mistweavers today, and we're going to focus on them, talk fistweaving, spirit, and so much more. This is Monk Meditation, Mistweaver Roundtable, Episode 7. Hello to all those monks out there in Azeroth. My name is Chai T from Airy Peak, US, where I monk around with my Windwalker and dabble in the healing arts as well. Hello as well to the dojo and to those listening later on. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm joined today by our regular hosts of the show that we've missed, starting with the panda of the thunderous voice, Daikatsu. How have you been, man? It feels like it's been forever.
Am I on?
You are.
Is this live?
Yes.
I've been standing here since the last show waiting for this camera to turn on.
Oh. My bad.
Nobody told me. I haven't eaten in weeks. Somehow I shaved and cut my hair, but...
It's a good thing you keep your razor at your desk, man.
Oh, jeez.
All right, also back with...
It's good to be back.
All right, back with us again is a great Now Yuki. How you doing, man?
Hi, guys. It's good to be back. Missed you.
All right, we go into... Oh, do you have anything for us?
No, not today. No, I'm just excited.
Okay.
I'm super excited.
All right, well, let's go to our special guest for tonight's episode then. From the Lightbringer server with the raid team 1337, Suplift. Sup?
Hello.
Hello? That's it?
Hello. I don't have anything original, just hello.
Okay. All right, he's playing the role of the purple manatee with a top hat for those on the live stream. All right, and finally, I'm bearing the lead here from the U.S. First Heroic Raid Team Blood Legion, hailing from Illidan, U.S. We're joined by healing extraordinaire Affinitii. Thank you for joining us.
Now you're just giving too much credit, but we'll go with it. I'll take it. Hi.
All right. Man, I am so glad to have you all here. We've got a whole wealth of information to get through tonight, so let's go ahead and get started. I want to get to know you guys a little bit better. So, what is your favorite spell or talent to use as a Mistweaver? A lot of them out there, but what is yours? Now, Yuki, why don't we start with you?
Mine has to be the Crackling Jade Lightning, and I think the reason for that is because, sadly, the DPS on that is higher than my Brewmaster and my Windwalker. Yay, Mistweavers.
For me, it's got to be Chi Torpedo. I really love using that thing. Especially, I got to do it in Flex the other day with Galcaras and having them all just stacked up right in the blizzard and just Chi Torpedo up and down and back. It's so nice. A lot of healing, a lot of damage. Duke, how about you?
You know, I have become a convert of the new Chi Brew. I know that I was someone who said I didn't like it, but I actually kind of like it better.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you were like, what? I can't do all four at a time? What? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's mostly, at this point, I mostly use it for the manatee stacks.
Speaking of manatees, let's go to the purple manatee. Suplift, what you got?
I think ever since I changed it, Rushing Jade Wind looks awesome, so
Yes.
that's my favorite spell. Always wanted to be a tornado.
Yeah, that thing is really fun, especially as Windwalker, but that's a whole nother roundtable. All right, Affinitii, what's your favorite spell?
I would say it's a toss-up between the new Chi Brew and Torpedo, but I haven't really used Torpedo much this patch, so hard to say that one, but I always like zooming around, so it's always a favorite.
All right, well, I'm going to cut off that music, and we're going to move into Storm, Earth, and Fire.
Storm, Earth, and Fire.
Now let's talk about our raiding progress in the Siege of Orgrimmar. Affinitii, I think I know how you guys did.
Yeah.
U.S. second, right? No, U.S. first. Oh, God. What am I saying?
So U.S. first, world second, 25-man, not factoring Asia and their weirdness. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was really slow for you guys. Come on. Pick it up. Pick up the pace.
Well, you know, could have been better. It was, 3 weeks?
Yeah. How long did Throne of Thunder take?
Not counting in the shenanigans of Raw Den, it was right about the same amount of time. I think we went in and killed Lei Shen sometime third reset as well. So it was right about the same amount of time.
Okay. It just seems so quick to me. But then again, it's like we haven't even seen Siegecrafter yet, so whatever.
We're like 6 of 4 on 14 on normal, and we're like, yeah, our pace is good.
We're doing good. Yeah.
14 of 14 heroic in 3 weeks.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do if we had to be in there any longer. I mean, we raid so hard, and then if it was like 6 weeks or something, I don't know.
Because most of you guys have
I
day
don't know if
jobs,
I'd
right?
Survive. Well, some people do, yeah. But
just take
so
all your
we're
PTO.
somewhat restricted, but with our schedule with that. But it's still pretty lengthy days sitting in front of the same boss. So I couldn't imagine doing that for
6
more
weeks,
than 3 or 4 weeks.
That'd be nuts. All right. Well, Suplift, how are you doing with your team?
I did a 10 of 14 in another guild in 10 man, and I recently switched to 25 man and did Doc. Now I'm on Siegecrafter. I learned that fight is not very good for monks, and I don't like it a lot. So, yeah, I'm currently on Siegecrafter. It's a fun fight if people don't die instantly to mines, but it's fun. I'll give it that. I hope we don't spend another like 2 or 3 weeks on it, please.
Yeah, I got to do that in Flex the other day, and that is an interesting fight. It really sucks for Windwalkers because you have to go all over the damn place the whole time. It sucks. All right, for Rolling Thunder, as Duke mentioned, we are now 6 of 14. We're taking one week at a time, and each week we're clearing out a couple new bosses. So Dark Shamans, you're up next. All right, Zucchini Zappers. We got a new raid team for now. Yuki, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. When we first got in there, it was a brand new team. They're still recruiting, and I'm helping them out. We got the first boss in Siege of Orgrimmar down. We were struggling with the second boss, so I helped them in TOT a little bit, getting some gear. And last week I couldn't raid at all because I pulled my back out like an old fart. And I could finally sit down again, so hopefully I'll be raiding this week.
Oh.
We'll see how far we get.
Wish you the quickest recovery, sir, and get you back in and raiding. Back
you.
up and healing people. Heal yourself so you can heal others.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's sit back, sip some brew, and talk about the WoW news in
Dizzying Haze.
There's quite a lot of dizzying haze out there with a whole lot of nothing. But Refer a Friends has a revamp, so you can look into that. BlizzCon's coming up, and we're going to be doing some coverage in BlizzCon. We'll have a live stream going for some of the panels, and we'll have some speculation panels as well. We'll also be able to bring some people in, so if you're interested out there in the dojo, let us know. We'd like to get you in so you can talk about all the WoW news that'll be coming out here in a couple weeks.
And it doesn't have to be specifically monk related. We want all classes, all people, all kinds of players to come in and chat with us while we sit at home and be angry at the people out there in Anaheim.
Right. Now, I know Blood Legion is going out there in force, right?
Oh God, we did this at the MOP launch, but we're basically renting a house for like 10, 11 days, and there's going to be like 20 or 30 of us out there, so it's going to be a disaster, but it's going to be a blast. I look forward to it.
Oh man, I can't imagine getting our raid team together for 5 hours. We'd kill each other.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we did fine at the MOP launch, so we'll see with more people there at BlizzCon if Rig yells at anyone there too, or what happens there.
You don't want to get on his bad side. I saw the video.
All right, well, I think that does it for the WoW news because there wasn't that much of it. So we'll keep you posted if there's anything new, especially Monk related, which I'm sure once BlizzCon happens, lots and lots to talk about. So now we get into the meat of the show, the roundtable itself. Did I click the right thing? Yes, I did.
Transcendence.
All right, we're going to talk Mistweaver today. Lots and lots of topics. Let's start off with the first topic on the docket, trinkets. What do we got in Siege of Orgrimmar for the Mistweavers that we want to look forward to? Which ones do we go after first?
Do you want to go Affinity or do you want me?
I mean, I can. My thing is it's end of expansion, so I'm not super crazy on the whole math of everything, but I'm basically looking at the Shaw trinket. for the amp, and the Nazgrim trinket's okay, but it's not as much healing as I thought it was going to be. Is it the multi-strike or is it the cleave one? There's a multi-strike and a cleave one, and one of them's really good and one of them's not. I just don't remember. I think it's a Thok one that is the one that's kind of
I think
up there.
Thok is the cleave.
It's a pretty interesting trinket, and it's nice that it's not your standard. Here, have some intellect. Here, have some random proc. So that's nice, but meh.
From a 10-man point of view, the best trinkets I would say is probably double amp, because in 10-man you're fistweaving a lot more, because that's like a major part of your output. So if you can get double amp, which you probably never will, because one, you're 10-man, and the second that it's a DPS trinket and you can't coin for it. But if you were like trying to get two trinkets that are like consistent for 10-man, I would say like amp plus Nazgrims, I guess, then try and get cleave and like use it on Thok. That's about it. But if you can get double amp, I'd use that.
If is the strong word there. So.
I don't even consider that a possibility, because I'm never gonna get a DPS trinket. That's just not gonna happen.
No, with 25 man, that's harder.
I have heard some cool things about Black Blood, that being a good trinket for monks, but haven't got a chance to use that either. I think amp would be better than that as well, or UVLS.
All right. So Duke, which ones are you going for?
The ones I'm going for is Prismatic, which is the healing amp, and the other one I want is the cleave off of Thok. I've already got the Prismatic. Happily, it dropped Warforged normal, so that's about as good as I'm going to get. Double amp would be nice, and it's already dropped a couple of times in our group, oddly enough. So maybe the next time it comes along, I might have a chance at it, maybe. But they really need to put that trinket on the Mistweaver coin, because we're the only healer that can actually try and use it without looking overpowered like a priest.
All right, now Yuki, which one are you shooting for? Same ones?
Same ones. I like the amp, but if I can't double amp, like they say, but what's the other one? I think off Garage. The one off Garage looks pretty decent, except has a little bit too much haste, so I'd probably reforge out of haste, because the proc looks pretty good on there. I think it's 17,000 intellect or 12,000. I don't remember.
All right. Well, CTR_Blaze at Blackglyph on Twitter, he asked, is a tier bonus worth it? So I wanted to talk about tier bonuses, tier 16, 2-piece and 4-piece. What do you guys think? Is this something that you really, really want, or is it meh?
You know, I'm going to really miss the last tier's 2-piece. I'm like sitting on one piece of gear I don't want to equip because I just don't want to break that 2-piece bonus. The 15% boost on every renewing mist that goes out.
Yeah.
I'm liking the 2-piece bonus. The 4-piece bonus is kind of... but both of them require a whole bunch of little gift of the serpent balls to be out there. And that's like a light well that people ignore on purpose just to piss you off.
So what is
I agree. Yeah, because I'm gonna miss the old 2-piece, because it's stacked nicely with the legendary metagem, and on top of that the legendary cloak. Just a bunch of dots getting thrown everywhere. So, like Duke said, a lot of balls out there that everybody dodges and don't take them to the face. You know, I mean, the glyph might help with 3 minutes longer on each ball, but people really don't like balls to the face. I don't know why. I don't know what it is.
So where do you guys... What is the 2-piece bonus for those who maybe haven't had the luck of having it drop yet?
Gift of the Serpent now also applies a 45% absorb of how much it heals for. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually like
And
with the glyph and
Really
the
good
amount
if you can heal somebody with it.
I've noticed even if like a raid, like my old raid that I used to raid in, they were pretty good with it. But even like in a 25-man with Glyph of Enduring Healing Spheres, which if anyone doesn't know, it just increases the duration of Mastery Orbs by 3 minutes. You get a lot of healing out of it. I'm talking about like equivalent to spinning crane kick healing on most encounters with me. It's pretty good.
Yeah, 10 man, it's coming out for about 3 or 4% for me, which is better than the 0.5% it used to before the glyph. But
See, I'm already telling our raid team to, my big guy's coming out. You want me to tell him to go jump on my balls, or jump on your balls? You really want me to say that?
Look, people like my balls.
Okay, all right.
They're blue.
Affinity, what do you think? Save us.
That is just terrible. I don't know. I mean, the set bonuses last year were definitely overall, they synergized a lot better. I really, really liked last year's 2-piece. So for progression, I was specifically running 2 set of last year and 2 set of this tier. 4 sets definitely been nerfed since PTR. But I mean, you've got a lot of renewing mists out, so there's a pretty good chance you're going to have these Mistwave things launching themselves out. So the 4 set's really not that bad compared to what I was kind of expecting it to have been.
So is this something that you would suggest people, let's say they have Warforged versions of legs and fit and gloves or something, and they get the 2 pieces to make the 4-piece. Do you go for it, or do you keep Warforged?
I would say unless it's like heroic, because like when you have 4-piece, you have to get a mastery piece, and if those Warforged pieces are like crit pieces, I would say you probably keep the Warforged, because Mistwave depends on the difficulty. Like Mistwave is a lot better in 25 man than it is on 10 man. I honestly don't know. Like you can just go with whatever really. It's a really set bonus. Like it's like 2% extra healing. So just if you want more crit, just stick with it, I guess.
Okay.
I would kind of think. Stop yelling at the dogs! God damn. I don't know. I would say if you're talking normal mode gearing, I would probably just run 2 set and kind of forego the Warforged in that case. But I guess if you're talking more heroic stuff, then I mean I guess it really depends on what kind of heroic Warforged items you're looking at. It may be better to get the Warforged pieces and just run 2 set. But off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to really tell you what the math is behind it. I would say it's probably a pretty close toss-up, though.
Okay. The extra few item levels offset the 2-piece. All right. Well, let's talk about changes from 5.3. I know there wasn't a lot of changes for the Mistweaver.
Revival.
Well, except for that. So, Revival got nerf towned, but other than that, I mean, your play style itself, did it really change at all when you went from Throne of Thunder to Siege of Orgrimmar? Did it really change?
I think a lot of things is that a few things changed with it. One, we switched to crit gen because as soon as we got like a heroic Thunderforged weapon, according to Seshu's like spreadsheet, it mapped out that crit on like most of your spells except Revival and Life Cocoon, that LOL Revival and Life Cocoon. That crit scaled a lot better. So as you know, crit gives you a chance of generating a double Manatee. Topple that with Manatee buffs. We were just straight up Chi-Brew buffs. Sorry, just so Chi-Brew is just gives you so much regen. And with the changes to Spinning Crane Kick, which made Spinning Crane Kick a lot better of a spell, because it's capped at 6 people, and it's a smart heal, so unlike before it's like randomly ticking on people for like 2k and like almost doing nothing, it now is actually a substantial healing spell. That instead of like smashing Soothing on global cooldown, we just spam Spinning Crane Kick all day. That's all we really do now. And we have the mana now, we have even more mana that we did in 5.2 regardless of the LMG nerfs. For us, so we just spam Spinning Crane Kick.
Yeah, I definitely noticed it's my Mistweaver is my OS spec, and I noticed it's not nearly as well geared as my Windwalker, but I've noticed when I went in there in Throne of Thunder, I was always running out of mana, and now it's like when I run low on mana, I'm very surprised in Siege. So it seems like mana conservation is not really too hard now.
It's like when you get low on the mana, it's like, oh god, I forgot to drink my tea.
Right, and then it's just like
That's what it turns into.
you chug 20 stacks and you're good to go again. So, all right.
The one thing I've noticed is that there's a lot more fist weaving going on, especially in 10-man. Especially me, I seem to be fist weaving the first 4 bosses practically. I do much better DPS in my Mistweaver spec than I do my Windwalker spec. That's for damn sure, and that's because I still don't understand how to play Windwalker other than punch, kick, what.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah, right. How much did you do that time? About 20k. What's your item level? About 510 / kick. But fist weaving seems to be a lot better. The mana seems to come more readily. Just basically weaving in and out of your muscle memory buff really seems to help out. So there's a lot of cases in which if you have a burn phase and you need that extra DPS, your Mistweaver is going to step up and really help you out with that.
Okay.
They did a lot of things with fist weaving because it's like a lot easier to sustain now because of the unglyphed manatee buffs, which were pretty huge, which got rid of the need of manatee glyph. And a lot of people don't utilize this, but this is readily utilized in 10-man. But if you talent into Zen Spirit, you can actually like abuse the DPS cloak very effectively and contribute quite a lot of DPS with the DPS cloak without even really trying. If you just put Zen Spear on tanks, that's what you basically really use in 10-man. Because before I shouldn't really go into talents because you might go into later. So I'll save that if you go into talents later.
Yeah, we'll be going into talents later.
Okay, I'll say what I'm talking about till later.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to talk about your place as a healer in comparison to all the other healers out there. I've felt this.
Below Disc Priest.
Yeah.
That's everyone's place as a healer.
Yeah. But I've had an opportunity to start healing flexes, and I think my rotation is good. I think I'm healing, but it's I notice I'm always pretty low on the heals. Granted, I'm higher in DPS than a lot of the healers, but that's because of fist weaving. But the other healers are they're the ones keeping the tanks topped off. And I'm just kind of rolling heals on raid members that are already near full health most of the time. So it always feels like my healing numbers are way low because I'm sitting there waiting for someone to take damage versus just having them rolling and overhealing like crazy. So
Well,
am I doing it wrong? Am I healing wrong?
I think it depends on who the other healers are, because if it's a druid, they're always having hots on everybody and they're overhealing like crazy. Disc priest, they're absorbing all the damage. If you have a shaman and they're low, they're going to heal them quick and higher. They're going to have higher numbers because the lower the people are, the higher their healing is. So ours, what we want to do is just always have Renewing Mist, Uplift, Fist Weave, like normal. And as you get the gear, your numbers will rise as well. Because a friend of mine had a problem where he was trying to spec and reforge like I was. And he was a brand new Mistweaver. I told him, no. When you're starting out, go the right way. Go Spirit, go Haste until you're capped, blah, blah, blah. Once you're good with Spirit, reforge into Crit, because Crit is God right now. And once you feel comfortable like that, just take out the Monotee glyph, like Purple Hat said, sups. And I just lost my train of thought.
The hat, it does it to everybody, man.
Monotee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally lost right now.
Yeah, so something about the Monotee glyph.
Oh, that's right. Not reforge. Just take it out, and you'll see yourself topping the meters, like me and Duke, and I don't know. I think Affinitii is pretty low on the meters.
Well,
He'll get there.
Okay, so one of the things that you're really limited by as a monk is we're pretty mechanically oriented as far as like if there's not a lot of raid damage going out, then we're not really that strong. You can really kind of see that on fights like Heroic Thok or Malkarok, because it's got like the Tortos style buff, and Tortos we did really well on. Where it's really just kind of like we don't have control over who we heal. We have control of when we heal, just not really who we heal to the extent that other classes do. So it's basically like if it's not consistent AoE damage and it's not completely being absorbed by Disc Priests, you're kind of sitting there not doing much of anything because that's just how the class is really designed right now. So I guess that's more of a limitation of the fact that it's LFR flexes. There's not huge amounts of raid damage, so it's really just kind of like who snipes it first, and that usually ends up being the Disc Priest because they just cut in line and absorb it before it even needs to get healed.
So would your advice be to not ignore the meters, but don't really pay attention to the meters as long as everyone's still alive at the end of the fight, you did your job?
General rule of thumb with anything is always as long as no one died, then you were doing your job, then you're fine. It's just kind of like the situation where the monk really is right now, and meters hasn't ever really been like a end-all be-all when it comes to the specific role that you're filling. So meters matter to an extent, but not to the point of where like if you're not top, then you're doing it wrong. It's just a matter of what else were you going to do? There's not much for you to do in that case.
You heard that, LFR trolls. Knock it off with the meters.
Well, there's one thing about meters is that there's only a finite amount of healing that's ever going to happen during a fight.
Right.
It's not like DPS that can scale up infinitely, essentially. Healing is only, I've got this much to heal, and we've got to split it 6 ways. And it essentially turns into which heals are more efficient, which right now absorbs are through the roof on efficiency because they can sit there and wait for damage. Whereas every other healer has to react, the Disc Priest can just sit there and go boop, 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 and cover everyone without really sweating too hard. Comes down to your latency. If the monk has higher latency than some other classes, they're going to heal faster, they're going to snipe the heal quicker. There's a lot of things that go into meters. The meters are really good for judging how well you can perform. They're not great for judging how well they can perform.
Okay.
Yeah, a perfect example of when not to look at a meter is, I think, Immersius, because everybody's so far spread apart that meters really don't matter. As long as you're doing your job, it should be good.
It's the one fight I top on. That one matters. Okay, don't ruin
Last
that.
2 weeks, I have gotten like 2 of the blue bubbles on my side. I'm standing here alone going, well, there's no one to heal, and there's no bubbles coming out.
I went in off healed
I
with
just
my
go and
crappy
snipe other ones.
I went there and
that's your
off
section.
healed
I
for
don't
my
have
with my crappy Mistweaver set,
what I did.
and I out healed Duke. It was the best night of my life. I was like, "What's up, Duke? Why you healing so bad?"
I had the mage come to my defense. It's like there was no one here to heal. I was OP.
Mercius is a lot more fun on PTR when Revival hit the ads.
Oh God,
It made it more fun.
because that's 100-yard
Now I
radius. You're just like,
I don't
poof.
hit anybody.
Jeez.
I
Sorry,
think
that's not
Revival
possible.
still does hit them. I could be wrong, but I think Revival might.
No, it doesn't. The
No.
contaminated ads don't get healed by it. The ones at full
God, that
health
would be
do.
nice. It's just like, all right, we're nearing the end. 2 people down. Hit revival. Bam. Win. Okay. All right. Wipe Shot Sun Twitter asked us, our raid leader prefers any healer above a mist. Is this a deserved perception? What are bad Mistweavers doing, and how can we stop it?
I think it depends on raid difficulty. If it's raid size, sorry. If he's talking about 10 men, I don't know what he's talking about because Mistweavers are blatantly overpowered in 10 men. But if he's talking about 25 men, I just get like 20 Disc Priests and overheal everything.
I think the thing that they may need to realize is just because top-end guilds might not use a specific healer or might say that a specific healer is bad, for your average player, like you're not top like 20 world, it really doesn't matter what you're on, so you really should just bring whoever's the better player rather than trying to bring a class. I mean, monks really aren't in the greatest shape right now, but ultimately, unless you're like really pushing hardcore rating like the top 5 do, then I mean the disparity between the classes isn't going to make or break if you kill a boss or not.
But even in like the top 5, there's still the 1 or 2 Mistweavers that are hanging around in the 25-man groups.
Right,
so
but then
we still have a place. We just don't have the place we had last year, in which it was we want monks, get more monks.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, though, that it's like, you even see it in top-end guilds where they don't always necessarily use the best classes. They still tend to use what they know will work. There's many fights where I probably shouldn't have been on my monk, but I just still was because that's what ended up working. Method's a great example of not. God, what was the first tier? I don't remember what that was. Was that tier 14, I guess?
Tier 14, yeah.
Right, Method used Resto Druids, and they used multiple Resto Druids. And Resto Druids, that's when I was swearing up and down that Resto Druids were useless. Because they were, but they still just brought in the players that they knew were going to get the job done. So it's less noticeable at the top end level, but there's still some wiggle room in there that ultimately it does come down to what works best for your raid team and who you would know should be in over other players, or kind of to that degree. A little less, but it is still there.
See, in this
Now,
tier, we don't.
I'll say this about bringing in a Mistweaver, though. The one fight I don't see anybody bringing in Mistweavers as heroic paragons.
Yeah.
What is going on in heroic paragons where it's like Mistweavers? No, sorry, you can't come in.
Okay, so I did heroic paragons on my monk for the first time last week. And I was below a holy paladin, which is pretty funny because holy paladins are kind of viewed as like one of the lowest healers right now. The issue that I particularly had with my monk on that fight during progression was fire lines would go out, 3 people would die, and they would kind of go, there's no healing from the Mistweaver, and you kind of go, nothing I can do about it. My renewing mists just weren't on those people. What do you want me to say? Okay. So it's one of those things that it's kind of like there's burst damage, but it's really only like on a certain amount of people, and it's really hard to know where you need to place your renewing mist beforehand. So we just end up like falling a little bit behind to the point where maybe you want to min-max it a little bit better and just not have a monk in at all for that. And that's basically what we ended up doing.
Okay.
All right, I want to move on to a question from @BumbusJones on Twitter. He asks, some examples of when Rushing Jadewind versus Chi Torpedo fights, heroic versus normal. When do you use each?
Are you stacked? If you're stacked, use Rushing Jadewind. If you're not stacked, use Cheap Torpedo to run around people.
I really, really, really hate Rushing Jadewind. And the reason why is because you're so used to spinning Crane Kick. Like, I'll tend to spinning Crane Kick, cancel Aura Cast it, like with my meta procs for Chi. It's kind of like you have to adjust to the fact that you hit Rushing Jadewind and then you can continue on healing. You don't just like, you're not stuck in a channel like you used to be. But that's always kind of been my go-to, like spam it to try and get more chi, or just like use it as a filler. And Rushing Jadewind kind of takes it away, and it ends up making the playstyle feel pretty clunky that I personally don't enjoy playing with that spell in particular.
But it looks so cool.
It does look cool, but I mean that's kind of the only thing it's really got going for it, at least on a personal level. I'm just not a huge fan trying to work around it.
It has another thing going for it. There's a bug with Rushing Jadewind right now, and the bug is if you leg sweep with Rushing Jadewind up, leg sweep will generate a chi and proc muscle memory. That's one thing Rushing Jadewind has going for it.
Let me write that down.
Like I got a new macro, right?
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you're like comparing Rushing Jadewind to the other talents, what you should actually compare is you're comparing Rushing Jadewind to Spinning Crane Kick and Zuen or Chi Torpedo. Like, Spinning Crane Kick not only heals more than Rushing Jadewind, but you have access to Zuen, which is a powerful cooldown and a damage cooldown, and Chi Torpedo, which is just blatantly better, IMO, and isn't clunky. So if you're gonna compare anything, if in a stack fight like Thok, I think you'd probably go like Zuen, because you don't want to really waste your roll charges on Thok in case you get targeted. Mm-hmm. But then Spinning Crane Kick is just straight up better than Rushing Jadewind, so why not just take Zuen, which you can use better during pulses and contribute damage.
I did do Rushing Jadewind for progression on Heroic Thok. But then like last week I didn't do it, and I feel like I actually did more healing without Rushing Jadewind. It's kind of a toss-up either way, but I really don't see any significant value to running Rushing Jadewind on that fight in particular.
So I think one thing you need to keep an eye out for is, as you were mentioning before, Mr. Purple Manatee, is the roll. If you need roll during the fight, don't take Chi Torpedo, because you're going to be out of charges when you need it most.
It'll be pretty trappy, and then you'll get chomped.
Yep.
Then you get yelled at, then you get kicked, then you start drinking, then you get divorced, then you end up in the gutter, and then you start designing monk classes for Blizzard.
Oh, God.
Then you're the healer balance lead. Yeah. You know,
Yeah,
he's
let's
not
just
sober.
give all the cool shit to Disc Priest.
All right, fist weaving. So I remember quite clearly you Affinity on Convert to Raid saying fist weaving sucks. I think that was in Tier 14 though. So do you care to recant your testimony, sir?
It still sucks. I mean, it doesn't suck as far as like the damage and healing, but it still sucks. I'm a healer. I want to mash heal buttons. I don't want to be like a worse version of a Disc Priest that actually benefits from doing damage. We just kind of like, it's kind of what we're left with. I don't know. I mean, I guess in a 10-man it's more important. I did a lot of fist weaving during progression because there was nothing better for me to do, but I personally don't terribly enjoy fist weaving as a mechanic right now.
I think it's a lot better in 10-man. Like from switching to 10 to 25, like I went from like basically using fist weaving on every single encounter to never using it. That just tells you how much more powerful it is in 10-man, and that's largely because of the range limitations in 10-man. You can actually abuse it and become an extremely potent tank healer because you're like hitting someone for like 400,000. When there's less tank damage, you just become a very powerful tank healer. And thanks to like stuff like Serpent Zeal, you can heal for sustained damage and heal for burst damage, while also healing the raid at the same time, which just basically means that you're the god of the raid. I want to be a 10-man raider again.
On a fight like Nourishan, where essentially people split into two groups, or Shaw of Pride, where people also split into two groups, put your statue near the tanks, keep yourself near all the DPS, and fist weave the whole fight, and you still will top the meter somehow. Especially on 10-man. And you'll probably come out third or fourth on DPS.
All right, you got anything to add on that now, Yuki?
Yeah, I'm with Affinity. I prefer not to fist weave. I'm an old school healer where I like classic heals, and but at the same time, I'm going to try what Duke said and try fist weaving on Nerushan and Shah to see if that helps out. Especially Nerushan with that enrage timer.
Screw the healing portion of fist weaving. Give us a fucking absorb every time we do it, like Disc Priest, and I'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
If Eminence wasn't absorbed to one person around you at a time, that would be a little bit better. Because then at least you can contribute a little bit to both DPS and heals without feeling like, well, hopefully somebody gets hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Or give us a healing buff with it, like another class.
We'll just nerf revival again. What the hell?
What if we just got rid of Disc? Can we just get rid of Disc?
Man, you guys,
I'm okay with that.
you guys seriously, Mistweavers had the least amount of changes and nerfs of any of the specs, and you guys are bitching the most. It's awesome.
Well, there's a difference because the other classes either got buffed or Disc Priest just, I don't know what the fuck happened with Disc Priest.
I'm just talking Windwalker and Brewmaster. I had the other rounds.
About Disc Priest because
and then they're just kind of
Disc Priest. It's like, yeah, we boosted you by 7%. It's like, really? That's it?
What happened to the Throne of Thunder nerfs? Like, they started to nerf them and like, yeah, Disc Priest nerfs, suck it, and then they still topped meters.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like, we started out really, really good, like way too good in the first tier, and then we kind of like were put back into our place a little bit better, and then the thing that just really hurt us was that Revival nerf. I mean, they could have left Revival where it was, and I mean, we wouldn't be overpowered. We wouldn't really be doing that much more healing than we are now. We would just have somewhat of a decent, viable raid cooldown. Now we just kind of like.
But Affinity,
the excuse that Ghostcrawler gave to it.
It's instant.
It was instant. I'm like, come on, though. But like,
it's instant, so it's okay.
who cares? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
No, you're stupid.
Because it's instant, you shouldn't nerf it. That's the
Ghostcrawler, if you're listening to this, I fucking hate you.
Oh, nobody from Blizzard listens to us.
The argument falls apart when they straight up buff Divine Star, and Divine Star made Disc Priest into Divine Star.
I think I'm going to have to put the explicit tag on this podcast.
I think Divine Star actually heals more than Revival. Someone should tell me, but I'm pretty sure
Divine Star ends up being like 20 or 30% of a Disc Priest total healing.
I think at this point, Nourish heals more than Revival.
It's retarded.
Druids are really up there. They're gonna nerf Revival and then buff Druids. I'm like, what?
Well, that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean,
It's unfortunate
what?
because like tranquility in certain cases is actually stronger because of the fact that it's not instant. Like it can be used across multiple bursts of damage instead of it just heals once, hope it doesn't overheal, enjoy. Like that's what you get.
Revival will keep you alive for one GCD longer. Hopefully, the next GCD doesn't kill your raid group, because then it's like, well,
Even
you
if
for trying.
Revival and Tranquility do the same amount of healing, Revival still ends up overhealing a lot. Like, there's a lot of overhealing in it, unless you take a really big spike of damage, but then at that point, you've already taken that spike of damage. So the Revival's really not changing much. It's not saving your raid's life necessarily in that case. So I think they were wildly throwing a Nerf bat around and they missed Dispriest and just went with us instead, or I don't know. They've got to have a dart board and they just throw darts blindly.
I think what they were trying to do with it, they were trying to address 10-man revival, because 10-man you were critting for like 500k revival, but when they reversed revival,
But the only reason anyone ever really used Revival in 10-man was because I've got more than 3 debuffs I need to clear, and some people are hurt. Let me use Revival.
Yeah.
Well, I
everybody's
mean,
at
that's a
10%,
fair
2 million
that's a fair
crit.
statement though for 10-man, because it was kind of like a mini lay on hands on your entire raid in 10-man, which, you know, yeah, they probably should rebalance it for 10-man, but you've got to have a balance. Like, there's a reason why there's a scaling modifier on it for 10 and 25. It hits more people in 25, but it doesn't hit everybody. They did that intentionally, so they should be able to balance it accordingly with that in mind. And they just decided to do an overall nerf and just throw out a random blanket statement and then ignore the matter altogether. It's kind of...
You guys will be having a completely new class come 6.0, I'm sure. So it's
Yes.
only one tier you got.
I'm
According to
kind of
lore,
hoping.
yes.
All right.
Nerf didn't even really affect 10-man though. It affected 25-man a lot more. Like 10-man, you're still critting for 400k with it.
Right.
All right, Suplift, we had a question in the chat room mainly for you, Duke as well, I think. Resto Shamans, because I know Duke, we raid with a Resto Shaman.
Nerf.
Okay, Resto Shamans in 10-man, particularly. What do you guys think of that? How are we in comparison?
You know, we're not... it really depends on what the situation is. When it comes to clutch healing, you're not going to look at your Mistweaver. You want to look at your Shaman, because if everyone's getting low on damage, they're going to pump out even more. Mistweaver rolls tend to be to kind of smooth out incoming damage slowly. Sudden burst damage, we're not going to do that great.
Yeah. Shamans, I know, are really
Unless
good
you
at bursts
have-
and a lot of cooldowns.
Yeah, unless you have the Renewing Mist on the people that are grouped up and you spam the Chi Brew, then yeah, you could do a quick burst. But yeah, Shamans are going to have the bigger burst because of their totem and their healing rain. So
Because how Renewing Mist is a lot better in 10-man, because you're gonna easily hit the 10 people. Like half the time you're healing 60% to 80% of your raid at a time, which makes Mistweavers a lot more potent. But I think in 10-man, if you can get your raid to stand in healing ring like 90% of the time, you can do a lot of like crazy things, like 2 healing Thok, for example. I've seen heroic Thok. I've seen a group 2 heal it already with a shaman. I don't think you can really do that with a Mistweaver.
Keyword you're missing as well, though, is utility. That's something you should really note, is Shaman has all of these utility spells, and I mean, Monk is still great in 10-man. We don't have as much utility as the Shaman does.
Yeah,
That's a
monetize
class
totem
wide
and all that stuff, yeah.
The biggest thing in 10-man though is that damage matters a lot more, and even though Shaman have like crazy utility, they're a really good third healer. Like ideally you'd want like Dismonk Shaman. That's probably like the best 10-man comp. But if you like 2 healing things, you want to like maximize damage as much as possible, which makes not shamans, monks a lot more potent.
True.
That's one thing monks have going for them in 10-man, is fist weaving, and that's a substantial part of our throughput. And you can do upwards of like 110k DPS I've seen of some encounters if you use legendary cloak.
All right, well, I want to talk about glyphs now. Which glyphs do you guys see as mandatory? Which ones do you run with, and which ones do you change any out from fight to fight?
One that I really enjoy is the healing sphere glyph, making it up to 3 minutes, especially if you're in a 10-man group. It's going to leave the sphere out there a little bit longer and give more of a chance for people to accidentally run it over. But it will increase your healing through your mastery. It still doesn't make mastery anything worth going for, but it does make your mastery at least somewhat useful in the middle of a fight. It's not going to make a difference on progression, though.
There's a lot of good glyphs. There's a Mistweaver. There's Expel Harm glyph. That's a really nice glyph. There's Renewing Mist glyph, which is absolutely mandatory, I'd say. That's like the only mandatory glyph. It's just so it bounces 3 times. There's like Zen Med, which is useful. There's Surging Mist glyph, which has its place. There's a lot of useful glyphs as Mistweaver.
Renewing Mist doesn't add another jump to it. That just makes it travel to the furthest injured target, right?
It just makes it work like it should have right from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I wouldn't really say that there's anything mandatory to the extent of the efflorescence glyph for a druid. Like, that is hands down a mandatory glyph. So I wouldn't necessarily say we have mandatory glyphs to that extent, but I've basically ran Renewing Mist, Expel Harm the entire way through. Is really just kind of the only ones that I never changed, like, ever.
Yeah, we don't have that many options. That's one of the biggest problems with the monk class, I've noticed. We've asked this question on every roundtable, and we've come to the same thing. It's like we don't have that many choices. Because we're 3 different classes in one class, it makes it very tricky to have a lot of glyphs, a lot of choices for each one. You look like something like Mage, where it's DPS, 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 just different flavors. And some of them you use 2 keys, some of them you use 3 keys. And then you've got all these different choices for glyphs you can have. Whereas with the Mistweaver, you've got a subset of one class of glyphs that you can use. And then some of them are crap, and then there's like 2 of them that are good.
Yeah, pretty much.
One thing I dropped in Throne of Thunder was the Affinitii glyph, where it turns it into an instant. Mm-hmm. I find myself leaving fights of Throne of Thunder all the time with like 10 to 14 stacks of Affinitii left, and it's like, well, I could have used this many stacks a couple of minutes ago. Don't use that glyph unless you're just starting out healing and you don't know the rhythm of the fight. Because if you know how a fight goes, there's always about 10 seconds that you can find where you can just chug a quick Affinitii, get your mana back up, and jump back into the fight. Especially if you trust your healers. If you're an LFR, don't trust your healers.
No.
That's a mandatory glyph for LFR.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. We've already touched on Rushing Jade Wind, so I want to go into Ascension versus Chi Brew. This is an interesting one. Last tier, we knew what the answer was at all times. Now it's a little bit trickier. So
last tier I was going Ascension, and this tier I'm going Chibru. So I guess I'm backwards.
Right? Is there,
no,
there ever a choice?
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think Ascension was ever that big a contender.
I didn't think so either.
I thought Power Strikes was the one that people talked about as, well, sometimes you want Power Strikes, especially if your healing is more regular, and sometimes you want Chi Brew if you need a big cooldown, like, double uplift.
I think Power Strikes was 5.1 or 5.2 when fistweaving was the shit, but ever since the nerf, I went Ascension until last tier.
Since 5.1, it's procced off Soothing Mist, but if you looked at any map in 5.1, you would know that, like, because of the 3 chi, like, I'm just going off 5.1 values. This is the argument in 5.1. Like, 1 chi is worth like 9k mana because we were mashing jab on cooldown. So if you got 4 chi instantly, that's 36,000, and that's equivalent to like 1 Manatee. So every 90 seconds, you're getting 48,000 mana, which greatly, like, not only is it a throughput gain, but it was a regen gain overall versus Ascension, and there was no point in time ever that Ascension was better.
Math.
The thing I like about Ascension when you're getting started or you stink is you get a lot bigger chi pool or mana pool. You get 45 extra K just sitting there at the start of the fight.
15% more.
Yeah.
That's really good if you're spirit starved.
Right.
Like if you're just starting, like let's say somebody that's just starting out getting Timeless Isle gear, and they're going to be at about anywhere between 470 and 496 because they don't have a weapon yet. Ascension might be good just to make up for that extra Manatee stacks that you're not getting from crit. But once you've got your crit to about 20%, you really don't need Ascension anymore. Reglich, who is in our dojo, says that the one time you want to use Ascension depends on how often you're using muscle memory. And that's true, because muscle memory will give you mana back on a percentage of your mana pool.
Brew's just, I mean, that's great and all, but the biggest selling point of Chi Brew is the burst capability that you gain from that. It's kind of like its own mini cooldown if you use it appropriately. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's kind of how I've always treated it, where it's 4 extra Chi, like, not even counting the Manatee gain that we got this patch, which is just silly. But, I mean, it's just always been a really nice, like, mini cool... I mean, it's not a cooldown, but it's a nice mini burst cooldown that you don't really have if you don't spec into it, so...
Right. So I think the call is Ascension is good until you're good, and then Chi Brew from there.
If you're doing a lot of fist weaving, look into Ascension. Chi Brew is great for when you need it. Just in fist weaving, Chi Brew is great for when you need that extra blackout kick to re-up your buff. The buff that blackout kick gives you that lets you heal from auto attacks.
Okay.
That's going to be about it. But then again, Chi Brew is more generally useful because having 2 Chi the minute you hit a button is always going to be great, because that's an uplift. That's a blackout kick. That's, a bunch of other stuff. It's 1 away from a touch of death if you want to get, want to claim that last kill on a boss.
Right. Okay.
Out of steam there.
Yeah, let's go back to other talents, because I know Suplift definitely had something to say about level 30 talents, so have at it.
Okay, so if this is completely from a 10-man point of view, because in 25 you're only going to use Chi Burst, so let's just get that out of the way. In 10-man specifically, you either want to use Chi Burst, depending on the encounter, or Zen Spear. Zen Spear from a pure damage point of view, because due to the way that Zen Spear works, it ticks every 2 seconds and it does nature damage, which means it will because of our high RPPM rate for the DPS cloak, because we have so much haste, you can basically just chain proc cloak and contribute a vast amount of DPS, which makes it better than Chi.
I thought they pulled the haste modifier on the cloaks in meta, didn't they?
No, they got rid of it like on the healer cloak, but the DPS cloak, the caster cloak still scales off haste.
Yeah.
I hate you, Blizzard.
I know, it makes it so confusing. I had that same question with like the Windwalker one. I was like, oh wait, the gem and the cloak still scales on haste? They said they took haste out.
The way it works is that if haste benefits from the proc does not benefit from haste. That's the key rule.
That doesn't help.
I think there's like 1 or 2 exceptions. It doesn't make any sense, because why would you want something that benefits your haste but then doesn't benefit the proc?
It's like a proc that just does straight damage will scale off haste, but if it's like it scales off, say like it was before, the proc gives you like 60 billion intellect, that won't scale off haste. Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. Not really, but okay. Are there any other talent choices out there that is contended that you guys switch around quite a bit?
I'm probably the last Mistweaver that likes Chi Wave. But on 10-man, it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice because you use it on the boss. It hits the boss 4 times. It hits somebody nearby 3 times. It's a nice fire and forget. But that's really the only reason I use it, and the fact that I'm doing normal. I don't really need to pump out that much.
Yeah, the whole Chi Wave before was basically just a damage ability in 10-man. Like, the healing order was pretty irrelevant, which you just basically fired on cooldown for damage. But ever since I think Regilich did it, I was trying it before. I did it before it was cool. And anyway, if you gain, it allows you to gain the DPS cloak for a substantial DPS increase, which matters a lot for progression in 10-man. And healer cloak isn't really that good in 10-man. I mean, the spirit is worthless. The 900 crit is good, but not only that, the proc is kind of in 10-man. I definitely would never use the DPS cloak as a Mistweaver in 25-man because it's a more substantial part of your throughput.
Okay.
Other than that, everything else is pretty cookie cutter, talent wise, except
Okay.
like if you're using JW, you'd use Leg Sweep for Chi.
Reglich is asking about healing elixirs.
I don't think I've ever honestly considered using healing elixirs. I would rather have a flat, proper cooldown than what healing elixirs is. I don't know, maybe that's just me.
I choose it because I'm lazy.
Healing elixirs is nice if you have the Manatee glyph. Mainly because it's a nice little instant heal that you can use for yourself so that you don't have to spend mana on yourself. But if that's really the only thing you're doing, there's a lot better things to hit, like go run over, go touch your balls.
And to do healing elixirs, you have to give up, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to give up diffuse magic. Is that right? Is that on the same tier?
Or dampen harm, and both of them are...
Those are way too
much
powerful.
better.
I don't.
Yeah.
It's like I will never give up
Let me
diffuse
give up
magic.
all my survivability so I can heal myself for a tiny bit.
Yeah, over the course of a long fight, I imagine it would actually kick in quite a bit. But you're a healer; you can heal yourself easy, expel harm, and everything like that. I don't think healing elixirs really is that great. I mean, Dojo seems to disagree, but I think I'm on your guys' side.
They're freaking lazy.
It's kind of hard to tell right now if the dojo is a bunch of hipsters yelling at us, though. Sometimes that's what the monk class feels like. It's like, yeah, go use Manatee Glyph. That's the best. And look at that moron. Man, sometimes the monk community can just really be a bunch of trolls.
Be nice to our
I think that
dojo.
can be
Our dojo's
applied to
awesome.
the internet in general.
Right.
That's
Yep.
just like the internet.
All right, so Siege of Orgrimmar, how have you guys felt so far? Does it play towards the Mistweaver playstyle, or are you guys running around with chickens with your heads cut off? Or both?
Depends on the fight, I guess. Overall, hasn't been terrible, but we're overshadowed by Disc Priest, so at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because you're just not even healing compared to them.
I really should have just brought a Disc Priest into this. That would have been fun.
It's first like to say we're not overpowered, even though we do like 20% more healing than everyone else.
Disc Priest like doubled me on Garrosh Heroic, and they're like, "Can we get more buffs, please?" No, no.
I don't know if it's
Magic
just
8 Ball
me,
says...
but I hate the Shaman boss for Mistweaver. I don't know why. Might
It's
be
because
terrible.
your freaking statue is
Getting
pointless.
slapped. No, actually, that fight, I'm constantly moving my statue.
Yeah, you have a cooldown on the bloody thing. That's the thing. It's like it's
At least it's not like what it used to be. Like, what was the cooldown that it used to be in the first tier?
like a minute or
30
something.
minutes, right?
It used to
It was
cost like a
something-
million mana.
Yeah, it
That
was
what
like 10
Which
minutes or something. Like,
Yeah,
at least
statue.
The statue cooldown. Like,
Oh,
you couldn't
God, the statue
redrop
was
it, like,
15
ever.
minutes.
Yeah, that was
It was
horrible.
like
At
15
least
minutes
it's
and a
not
quarter
that.
of your mana. It's like, well, okay, guys, I need to drink first.
But on
Yeah.
Shaman,
Oh, your
with the
statue's
statue's
not down.
the problem.
Well.
Because you always put it ahead of the tank, and then by the time you get there, your cooldown's off, and then you can put it ahead of the tank again. But
It's a lot of micromanagement, though.
yeah, that fight is. That's why I think that's the fight I hate the most right now, is the Shaman fight.
I think that's a fight everyone hates the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another Tortos for me.
They
See,
need
I
They
don't
need
like
to make
Tortos.
They need to make statue kind of do something, because right now it's kind of like if you're fist waving, it does something, but outside of that, it kind of just does nothing. Like it's just a 50% increase on Suvi mist healing.
hmm
They need to really either like redesign what it does or just make it straight up better.
They need to. The thing I really loved when they first introduced the Mistweaver was fist weaving itself. Is that you're in there, you're in melee doing DPS, your statue's healing, it's doing everything. They're so schizophrenic now, where it's like there's mist weaving and fist weaving, but you can't fist weave all the time, and it's like. But some of the talents, the statue is a great example, where the statue is built for fist weaving. If you're not fist weaving, you're not getting what you need out of it. And they really need to focus in and choose. Either give us a fourth spec, make a fist weaver and a mistweaver spec, and call it good.
It's like they were scared of the DPS that a healer could do.
but then they gave it to Disc Priest. Ha! Beat you, Affinity.
I don't know. I mean, the intent behind it, like, I understand why they wanted to separate fistweaving and mistweaving, because we had this thing called, at the time it was called zeal weaving, where you are just doing like a jab uplift, and they're like, oh, we don't like that, and now you're just soothing uplift, so it's like you're doing the same damn thing. So I feel like they haven't really determined where they want to go with that yet, because they're like, we don't like that you're damaging and healing and fist weaving and blah blah blah. We like want them to be separate.
Why did you give me this?
Why
did you give me a
create a monk?
statue that works
But
perfectly?
then Disc Priests,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Disc Priest rotation is like Atonement and Spirit
Smite.
Shell. That's what they do. So it's like they decided to nitpick what our specific rotation was doing, and say, oh, we don't like this, when another class is doing the exact same thing, but on an even bigger extreme. So if they don't do a significant class, like completely change everything in 6.0, then I would be seriously surprised.
Yeah,
It
they
also
were
feels
talking
kind
about
of
that.
like. It also kind of feels like weird to play monks. Like it kind of feels like the class doesn't flow together anymore without jab. Like jab was basically like the entire class. It felt like, and it just flowed into like everything you do. Like it flowed into uplift, it flowed into fist weaving, it flowed into like everything. It's
Right,
The
well-
thing is, there are other. Sorry.
That's because they designed the class like a Holy Pally, except everything costs chi. Like, they liked the Holy Power idea, but they wanted to take it a step further, and then they removed really our only solid, guaranteed method of generating chi. Like, that's kind of where they really kind of made the rotation more clunky, is because soothing isn't a guarantee to generate. It's a chance that increases when you don't generate it on the tick, but it's still random, as opposed to jab, where it was a guarantee. So yeah, I mean, it did become clunky because they decided for whatever reason they didn't like it. But you either have to give us a guaranteed source of chi on a GCD, or you have to remove our significant dependency on chi as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That's pretty much what it comes down to, is we need to be able to generate chi fast enough, and the ways that we had to do it as a Fistweaver, 5.0 and 5.1 and 5.0 were kind of nice and worked. And you felt good because you felt different from the other healers. You weren't just straight up healing unless you really needed to. It's like you had a 6 gear as a healer. And basically they decided, no. We need everyone on an automatic transmission. So
All right. Well, that kind
Key
of.
word is.
Go ahead.
I think the key word is that if zeal weaving felt fun and they took away our fun, they need to bring our fun back.
Well, this kind of moves into the final topic of the evening so far, unless the dojo comes up with more. 6.0. What do you guys want to see? What changes do you want made to the class? Is there any new glyphs, any new talents, any new abilities? Complete rework? What is the perfect Mistweaver?
Give me revival.
Nerfing discs.
Both.
Bring back zeal weaving.
Yes.
I liked Zeal Weaving. I honestly would not be sad to see Soothing Mist go away and having us focus strictly on Fist Weaving and making Jab our Soothing Mist, so that you're healing by doing damage to the people around you. If you need to burst, there's always Renewing Mist and Uplift. Those two are never going to go away, and I actually like the way those work, but I wish Renewing Mist was a little bit smarter about who it targeted.
In fights like
You really need to be able to spread it out. It should be a little bit closer to a wild growth where it kind of hits a few people at the same time, or it has to be a rejuve where you go, I Renewing Mist you, and it ticks for 18 seconds, and I Renewing Mist you, and it ticks for 18 seconds.
fights like Malkarok make this really hard because Renewing Mist has no idea who to go to effectively and efficiently. It's like, oh, I'll just keep going to the guy who's technically the worst on HP, and yeah, he's got his huge bubble already. Stop it.
Well, that's why I don't agree with Duke, because I personally like I said before, the old school way of healing. I like throwing a Renewing Mist out, and whoever's taking damage, throw a Soothing Mist on him while it jumps around. And in a 10-man, it's very, very, very easy to get Renewing Mist on everybody because of the Thunder Focus T, I think.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, you could get it on everybody, and then you pop Chi Brew, and there's your burst, while you're still casting more Renewing Mist, more Uplifts, more Soothing Mists, generating Chi. So, I mean, I like the classic heal. I miss fist weaving, but at the same time, I love healing the way I heal now, except, I want my revival back. I'm being selfish.
I mean, I feel like the biggest issue right now with Mistweaver is our lack of control on who we heal. In most cases, it ends up being fine, but over the last 2 tiers, there's been a lot of times where I've kind of looked at a boss and I kind of went, would it be better if I was on a class that could control what people they were healing? And I mean, we brute forced it before with how many Renewing Mists we would have out on the raid. Like the vast, I don't remember what the number was, but it was a lot of people. Like they chopped off 1 jump from Renewing Mist, and that didn't necessarily affect 10 man as much as it did 25. And like we compensated, like you couldn't really control who you were healing, but you did more healing, so that kind of outweighed that limitation. And now we don't really have that thing to compensate for it anymore. We just kind of we don't do amazing healing, and we don't control who we're healing. So they need to keep kind of some form of uniqueness to the class, but they need to find a way to keep the uniqueness with Renewing Mists while also giving us some form of more appropriate control over who we're healing and when we're healing them.
One thing they could do is a lot of people have said this before, but they could probably put Renewing Mist on a charge system, so you don't have to actually press it on cooldown every single time. Because if you miss Renewing Mist by 2 or 3 seconds, you're gonna be behind.
I feel like the reason why they haven't done that is because we're probably one of the more rotational-oriented classes. Like I've always said in the past, if you play a DPS, the one healer you're probably going to be more comfortable on is probably going to be a Mistweaver, simply because we are more timer-oriented. So I feel like the reason why they didn't implement a charge system for that is because they didn't want to make it such a tight rotation that if you screwed up once, that everything unraveled. I mean, we're kind of at that point anyways with our Renewing Mists, but I feel like they didn't want to overcomplicate that even further. So they need to find a balance between keeping that there without completely screwing someone who's not necessarily a top-end player. They just want to mash buttons and go. They don't really want to have to be on such a finite extreme.
How about changing our mastery?
To something useful?
Yeah.
What, you want to be like Windwalkers and get a new mastery every tier?
Well, what I was expecting them to do is what they did with Resto Druids going into Firelands, where they're just kind of well, this mastery blows chunks. Here, have one that just increases your healing. I'm surprised that they didn't just do that, because that's really kind of what all the healers' mastery is, where it's just kind of here you go, you got to heal for more. That would have been better than what they have with ours.
Or
this
make our
happens,
mastery
you heal more.
the new Lightwell.
Lightwell was not fun to begin with. It's a piece of crap talent. No one likes it. And they just they made it an even bigger extreme with more balls on the ground. Stop it. No one likes Lightwell. You guys even said you don't like Lightwell. That's why there's a Lightwell glyph. Stop it.
Exactly. I think they should do the same thing with our mastery, where kind of where if the ball's about to expire 10 yards away, it goes to the closest person. Instead of them having to run through it, just like Lightwell, them having to click on the Lightwell, which sucked. I never clicked on it, I'll admit it. Until I played a priest, I'm click my Lightwell, bastards. But I feel the same way with Mistweaver Mastery, where they should change it, or make it like the new Lightwell. Give us a glyph or something.
There's a couple of things they could do. They could make our new mastery the tier 16 4-piece, which would be really cool, and I hope they do that, because tier 16 4-piece is really cool looking, especially when it was at 20% on PTR, and you're constantly shooting at.
Hey, that's what they did. That's what they did with the Windwalkers this last patch. Was let's take the 4-piece bonus from tier 15 and make that our tier 16 mastery. So maybe there's hope for you guys yet.
They could either make it a fun mastery, like I said, or they could just make it a standard heal increase mastery. Your chi spender abilities give you a buff that stacks and makes you do more healing. That's an example of mastery. You can make any mastery for Mistweavers that's better than what we have. One thing I hope they do, and I kind of hope they keep Gift of the Serpent just as a passive, but not our mastery. His Gift to the Serpent is kind of cool if your like raid utilizes it, but if it was like a passive that we had to be a lot more like likable, instead of just like a dumb mastery.
All the other ones are passive. Am I wrong in that? In that all the other healing masteries are passive and just say, when you do this or this happens, you heal more. You know, for druids, that's the other class I know best, and it's basically, hey, you have a hot out, you heal more, yay, you're doing your job. And for Mistweaver, it's like, hey, the DPS remember you'd like to spit out balls, yay, you heal more. It's like, wait a second, why am I not in control of my own healing? Is what it comes down to.
Because YOLO.
Yeah, basically.
That's why.
A mastery I would like to see is something that synergizes better with fist weaving. Something that says, hey, for all the damage you do, you get a spell power buff or something like that. Something that kind of says, use the full potential of your class. Which is what they did with the druid, which is what they did with shaman. Shaman are so cooldown efficient that basically they have to say, well, your mastery has to be that if everyone's about to die, you're the one they want.
Yeah, if they change it to better the fist weaving, that'll probably lure me back into fist weaving, which will be fun. You know, being top DPS in dungeons is always good in my heart.
Another thing you have to think about when you have to like address monk balance is you have to make our mana balanced. And there's obviously like the straight up idea of just making Manatee scale off spirit, but I think you could go even more. Like basically, our entire like mana regen would be. Oh my god, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, I just lost my train of thought. Like our entire mana regen comes from like Manatee like, entirely, and so we wouldn't have just base. You know how spirit like gives you like regen, gain like 6k every like 5 seconds, whatever. We could just get rid of that completely and just make our entire regen come from Manatee. I think that'd be a cool idea.
They need to keep a balance on that though, because I mean that was kind of the issue with like Innervate and whatnot scaling off of Intellect, where they didn't want your throughput to also be your regen. So they kind of dropped the ball with wanting to make mana matter. This is like the second expansion in a row that they've dropped the ball on it, but they need to be careful and not overcomplicate that further by trying to do it again. So that may not be the best of plans.
All right. Well, Reglich, you have any thoughts on this?
I would say the way forward is active mana regeneration, because I think it actually takes a lot more skill to plan your regen around the fight than it does to stack spirit to a certain level.
Mm-hmm. Make it kind of like the
act in mitigation on a tank.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Isn't that kind of the chi thing though?
Yeah, that is pretty much what monks already have. Like,
right.
If you notice, they brought from Blood Death Knights, they actually brought the active mitigation from them to other tanks.
Right.
I think they're going to bring Manatee to the other healers.
What?
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
I could see that playing interesting. Screw disc Nerf.
It would basically turn us into the arcane mages of healers.
You need a bat this thick.
For the audio listeners, we've been joined by Reglich on Twitter. He's joined us to chat a little bit, and so welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
He does math stuff.
Yes. So the one topic that came out of the dojo that I wanted to touch on, we touched on a little bit before, but Reglich is a good one to talk to about crit versus int. Which way do you go?
Crit all the way.
Yes.
I think the mana it's not ignorable after the nerf to the legendary mana gem.
I think I said this earlier. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think I said this earlier, but I think it's Seshuriru. I don't know how to say his name, but his spreadsheet, like I always use his spreadsheet just to like calculate like what piece of gear would be better. Like I think there was a certain point, and I think I did this when I had a heroic Thunderforge weapon, that crit would start like outscaling on every single spell. I think I said that earlier. I can't remember if I did.
No, it will never outscale for revival. Just because if you crit a revival, you're just that much more likely to overheal on it, just because it hits for so much.
Mm-hmm.
But on your filler spells like Renewing Mist and Uplift, certainly, yeah, I could see crit definitely scaling a lot better. In fact, I think it's 20% they scale better than it, so...
Something like that, but after a Revival nerf, there was absolutely no reason to say crit. I think the reason we stayed int in 5.3 because Revival was a considerable part of why. Like, we wanted an actually like really good raid cooldown. But now that Revival sucks so much, that there's no reason not to go crit.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, but I think the most important one was the mana due to the haste nerf to the Legendary Metagem as well. Since crit also provides mana, obviously, I think both of those kind of worked to, make crit the best.
Yeah, you're never going to get a better output and throughput stat than you are crit as a Mistweaver. It just rocks for both. There's no reason not to gem for a ton of crit.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Affinitii, I know you've got to get ratings soon, so I want to make sure that you can get your shout-outs in here. Anything you want to pimp or toss out any shout-outs to?
Nerf discs.
Yeah, well, we got that. I think we got that quite a bit.
I think that's our episode title.
Yeah, Nerf discs. This is definitely the...
I mean, you can follow me, I suppose, on tweeters. That's what, Affinitii BL? Something like that?
Yep.
I don't know anymore. You can follow me there if you
I
want.
think so. I'm not
Sometimes
sure.
I post things. Sometimes I don't.
You should subscribe to him on Twitter. He makes really good weak auras. Oh, not
I
Twitter.
steal the weak auras.
Twitch.
I steal the weak auras for my guildies.
And then we
And then
steal
claim
it
it
from
to
you.
I
own.
steal yours. I steal your weak auras.
Speaking of that,
That's
I
the
need
only
to
reason
post
I
those
subscribe.
tonight.
to you on Twitch.
I don't stream because my UI pretty much looks exactly like yours, Affinitii.
I love
Almost. I
opening
moved
a
a
stream
couple.
and
I
seeing
moved a
people
couple
with
of
my
things.
UI. It's great.
It's like, oh, I'm playing right now. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah, it's I just stole his lock, stock, and barrel. That's what I use too. So,
Shadow and Light makes it so easy.
all right. Well, Affinitii, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Good luck with your run tonight.
And thanks for putting up with my scheduling mishap.
Not a problem.
Pleasure.
All good.
All right. Any other topics from the dojo or anything else you guys want to talk about? Open game.
We had a question about healing cooldowns. Valen asked, is healer utility as bulky as the DPS cooldowns? Timing healing cooldowns on fight seems to be really effective, yet DPS cooldowns seem to be a larger range and used as soon as they're ready. Healing cooldowns generally fall into two different kinds of categories: output or throughput. I want more mana, so I use this cooldown, and the first one that comes to mind is the new Chi Brew, and the other, which also is an output because now you can do an uplift, you can do a blackout kick. Our one big raid cooldown, if you even want to call it that, is Revival, and at this point I've actually told new Mistweavers, don't think of Revival as a raid cooldown. It's an oh shit reset button.
And there's no real fights this tier that I've seen so far that's like Horadon, where everybody has a poison on them. And
Yeah.
that might be one of the problems, that going back to one of the questions of why raid leaders aren't bringing Mistweavers, is that in TOT, it was like, oh, we have to have a Mistweaver for Horadon, where now it's not as big of a deal. Oh yeah, like someone says in the dojo, it is awesome for the Malkarok. It's a shields up button. So that one's that's true.
That's I think it's actually kind of funny how Revival works on Malkarok, because since it hits like everybody, you're guaranteed to have it hit people who have shields. But because of the shields, other raid cooldowns, because they're smart, they actually like hit pets instead of players. So it's kind of
so it kind of swaps us with the other healers, because now we're renewing Miss. Our main heal is crap on that fight, but our cooldown is awesome, whereas before it's the other way around for everybody else.
No, actually, Renew Mist is still pretty good as well, because back whenever it used to spread the pets, whenever they fixed that, it just doesn't spread the pets anymore. If you don't cast on a pet, it won't go to the pet.
Yeah, but it still goes to the most injured player, and does that even take into account the absorb that's on there?
Probably not, but the thing is, it won't override the Renewing Mists already on that player. So you get full effect of
As long as you
Renewing
keep it
Mist.
rolling, yeah, it's okay. I think in 25 mana it sucks, so it hurts real bad. So, one thing I've noticed in this tier, though, is that they are putting a lot of the mechanics on that 3-minute timer. So your revival is up pretty much every time you need it. So it is almost on a cooldown basis. I know Nazgrim is on a 3-minute timer for a lot of his stuff. So
Yeah,
a lot
definitely.
a lot of predictable AoE damage is on 45-second cooldown, which makes it extremely good for TFT. I think there's one fight that's its pulse damage happens every 45. Escapes me right now. Get back to me on this one.
okay.
Think of it.
All right, Dojo, you have any final topics before we head out for the evening?
Well, I think we should give Reglitch a little bit of the floor since he joined us a little bit late.
Yeah.
He's heard us bitch about just about everything that he also complained about. So I'm wondering if there's anything we missed, anything that you think we need to get out there for this patch, or something that you want to see in 6.0.
I'm not really sure. I don't know if there's anything that's not already been discussed, but for something I'd like to see in 6.0, I would like to actually see the class being embraced as a sort of utility spec, as opposed to just straight healing. So say a chakra sort of mechanic that would make us do 75% damage as opposed to 50% that we currently do roundabouts, and then you can switch that between a healing one as well.
So that was kind of what it was originally designed for when they were showing it off in beta, is that they had that dark side, light side of the chi type mechanic, where I think that was probably how Mistweaver was going to work, that if you go dark side, you're doing more damage and less healing, and then light side more healing. And I think that kind of mechanic would be really awesome, being able to shift back and forth depending on what the fight needed, and even during the fight.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to manage 3 different resources.
Right.
Dark chi, light chi, and mana at the same time. I'm just slash quit. I'm done.
You see, the thing with that is, I think the main problem with it is that fistweaving actually costs such a large amount. You actually have to focus on your mana while you fistweave. So you're looking at your mana, you're looking at your chi, and then you also have to look whether or not you're in melee range, how many targets there are, and things like that. There it just ends up being so much to manage, it's confusing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they made it more like a discipline priest sort of thing, where it's cheap but effective, you'd be able to more focus on your chi and whether or not you're attacking the thing that's in front of you.
So I go back to, I made this point before, but I would love to see a 4th spec like the druids, with 2 healing specs, a Fistweaver type thing, and they'll probably call it something different, but Fistweaver and the Mistweaver, take the fistweaving out of Mistweaving and give that just a pure on healing, and then have a DPS healer hybrid.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
They could just make the actual Mistweaving spec Chi-Ji, and then they can make the DPS healing spec Yulong. There you go.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. I think we've solved it. Blizzard, listen.
Get on it.
Yeah, and nerf Disc Priest. Since Affinity's not here, someone has to take that up. Okay. All right. WOMD on Twitter asks, not on Twitter, in the dojo, he asks, not sure if it was covered, and I don't think it was. Do you think the lack of large damage bosses or bosses with heavy predictable burst damage contributes more to our falling out than the other healers being buffed?
No.
Okay.
If you look at Thok, for example, we're still far behind in Thok. Even though we even can be, interrupted, other classes still pull ahead by an insane amount. I think it's really just the talents on priests that, put us out of the top there, along with the, what's the thing that shamans can use to make their riptide spammable? Is it a glyph or is it a talent?
Glyph of Riptide, yeah.
Yeah, Glyph of Riptide with Healing Rain makes them very strong there as well. And there's just nothing we can really do to get our healing in the sort of windows where people are taking damage as effectively as, Healing Rain or Divine Star, things like that there.
I think one of the problems we have is that we are a toolkit in search of a problem. Everyone else has a pretty good niche that they've got covered. We've covered Disc Priests, and their niche is that they prevent incoming damage. Shaman great when you're low on health. Druid, wonderful for blanketing the raid. A Holy Priest is kind of in between all three, and then you have a Holy Paladin, which I think they're kind of falling behind a little bit at this point. Mistweavers had a pretty good run as being the damage smoother in TOT, and the nerfs have kind of brought us down a bit from that. If it's a small, constant raid damage that's going out, then Mistweavers can generally deal with that and keep everyone kind of topped off. And I'm thinking like the burn phase on Iron Khan. When it comes to more damage being popped on, you're not looking for a Mistweaver, you're looking for a Disc Priest, you're looking for a Shaman, you're looking for a Druid. So I think our central problem is that we have a great toolkit, we just don't have anywhere to use it.
I would disagree, because if you look at fights like Immersius and Black Fuse, we clearly are very effective there because of the fact that Renewing Mist allows you to heal with Uplift at retarded ranges. Like people can even be on the belt and you can still heal them with Uplift. It's just such a ridiculous range. So, I mean, it's less of a question that we don't have a niche, it's just more of a question that it's not really used on that many fights. Like, I mean, for example, if Garrosh had a fight, like a mechanic where you had to spread 80 yards away in two separate groups.
Yeah, that is true. If the group has to kind of stay spread apart, then a Mistweaver is going to pull ahead a bit of some other classes. But that's not really a great niche to have, because it depends more on raid strategy than it does boss mechanics.
And it also completely jacks out all the other healers.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a Mistweaver, yeah, we're pulling ahead because we can deal with it, not because we're geared, not because we're aimed at that niche. Whereas there's never going to be a point at which blanketing a raid with Tranquility, there's never going to be a point at which putting an Absorb on someone, there's never going to be a point at which healing people that are low health for a lot is not going to help. We need a better niche during a fight. There has to be phases during a fight that say, this is where you want a Mistweaver.
I think what Reggie Litch said was, how do you actually say, okay, hold on, this is a side, how do you actually say your name? Because I think I say it wrong.
Reglitch. It's not Reggie Litch.
Okay.
Reglitch, sorry.
Reglitch. Okay, I think Reglitch said this quite well, is that our like strength comes in like spread healing, spread burst healing, which is what we were really good at. And if you could look back to TOT, a lot of TOT fights had that. Like Twin Consorts you can really stack, so what's a good fight for a class that? Mistweaver. Iron Khan's a good example with like the last phase before you stack up. Mistweavers are really good at that, at keeping the people up, regardless, especially in like 10 men. And because there wasn't really like a lot of mobile fights which require a lot of roll charges, our stacked healing was really good because we could use Chi Torpedo a lot. And that's how we kept up in stack phases, was using Chi Torpedo. And the fact is we had like a lot of mana, obviously, and healers still kind of had to transition. Like right now there's no mana problems for any healer, but in TOT there was still healers that had to invest quite a bit in spirit to do like somewhat equivalent output to a Mistweaver, while we could just invest purely in throughput stats. That's why we were incredibly good in TOT. But ever since this
those
year,
are good points.
There isn't a lot of fights that require that. There's like maybe spoils, I guess, but you can still stack on that. And Mercius is a good example. Like that's a really good Mistweaver fight. But besides that, there's like none other fight that I can really think of where they actually like fully utilize our kit. Like spread burst healing while providing damage. That's like our niche. I would say it, and they haven't really utilized that at all this tier.
All right, since
I've noticed that I'm pretty high on the second boss. I forgot what they're called. The
Fallen Protectors.
People. Yeah, Fallen Protectors. On that fight, I guess because of the Renewing Mist and uplifts and revivals, and then the stacking, and then unstacking, Chi Torpedo, blah blah blah, Chi Wave. On that fight, I think that's the only fight besides Immersius that I feel where if I don't pass a priest, I'm right up there with them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since we have our math person here, I want to go back and touch on our third topic of the evening, which was our second topic, the Tier 16 set bonuses. We had some questions in regards to the 4-piece bonus in particular. If you have Warforged pieces of 2 of those pieces, do you stay with 2-piece set and the 2 Warforged, or do you go with the 4-piece?
I would definitely go with the 4-piece. I mean, we have actually 3 good pieces of tier this tier as opposed to just 2, which means you're only really trading off about 6 item levels. Is it Warforged has over a normal piece?
6
yeah?
or 8? I think it's 6.
Yeah, you're trading off 6 item levels plus whatever your worst set piece is going to be. I think that the spot healing from the 4-piece is just so much more valuable than the 600 credits so worth you're getting out of that.
Okay.
People also, I think like a lot of people in MMO champion forums also think that like our tier 15 2-piece is like, oh, it's like the best thing in the world. Like it was like absolutely crazy. Like, but in reality, it wasn't like, it was like people were very overvaluing it a lot, especially when they were comparing it to tier 16 2-piece, a 4-piece, sorry. And people were like saying that they were going to keep tier 15 2-piece over like massive like int increases and like the power of like spot healing.
Yeah, the thing is, I think a lot of people actually mistook the tier 16 4-piece as being only castable at renewing miss targets, if you know what I mean. So it would only go to your lowest health renewing miss target. I've actually had to correct like 3 or 4 people on that, but it actually goes to anybody in your raid, whether or not they have renewing mist.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has like 80 yards range as well. If you're like up on top of the Milk Rock platform and like someone's running down like on a corpse run, your Mistweave bolt, which is what the 4-piece spawns, can actually go down and hit that player. So it's got an absolutely insane range on it, which again is helpful for fights like Immersius, Black Fuse, and actually Spoils of Pandaria as well, because I've seen it go through the wall once or twice.
It's gone through the wall too?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Nerf Mistweavers.
What?
Someone's not getting healed Friday.
Oh, that's all right. We don't have a disc priest. Damn it. Okay. All right. Any last topics? Anything else you guys want to talk about before we head out?
Nope.
I could talk about like the power differences between like 10 men and 25 men Mistweavers, and like how because of like the cap on renewing mists, like 10 men Mistweavers are just so much more potent.
Mm-hmm.
And
It used to be the other way around. We used to scale better at 25 than we did at 10.
Yeah, I think that's partially because of the master nerf that we've seen recently because of the target capping. I mean, 25 players plus pets and guardians healing with spinning crane kick generated an insane amount of orbs. Like you could use spinning crane kick like 5 times in a fight, and it would probably spawn about 3/4 of the amount that renewing mist did the entire fight. Yeah. But you don't get that anymore with a 6 target cap.
Yeah, a lot of people don't actually like realize that like our mastery has been like progressively nerfed throughout the entire expansion with like the lower cap on renewing miss and the spinning crane kick nerf. The only reason like mastery is doing like so much more healing this tier, like a lot of people who think our mastery is like really good, is mainly because of 2-piece. And if you factor that in, we do slightly more healing than we did last year with mastery.
But even then, you get 45% as an absorb, which is great. But since a majority of people just kind of explode and get healed by mistake, it's 45% of already 50%, and the absorb will pretty much go through in a single pulse from a boss, a single misstep into like Black Tar or something like that. The absorb doesn't last that long. In some cases, you could almost jab more than you could for what the absorb is going to remove some
one
people.
Strategy,
in extreme cases.
One thing you may want, that 2-piece can be incredibly powerful for tank healing, because I've done that before where I've sat there and spammed the healing spheres on the tanks as the main heal. And if you're throwing absorbs on there too, that could be broken. Do they stack?
Doesn't affect healing sphere.
Oh, it doesn't
affect healing sphere.
Shoot,
Oh,
just the crap. Well, there goes that.
I wish it affected healing sphere because it already does about 300k healing per second by itself. I wouldn't mind an extra 45% in that.
Well, never mind then. All right.
Yeah, it's only Gift of the Serpent Spheres, which really blows. If it was Healing Spheres, oh my god, people would remember there's that spell in their spellbook.
Yeah. I still use it when I'm running back. All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the monk community and the Peak of Serenity with
Zen Pilgrimage.
All right, so I want to talk about some things. Next episode is going to be about the PvP. So, PvP Roundtable. So far, I've gotten the name of one person who PvPs. I'm sure there's more of you out there. So, if you're out there, I want to talk to you. Feel free to message us at monkmeditation@gmail.com or reach me in Twitter at wowmonk. And we'll get you on the next episode. We want to hear how you vicious PvPers are out there kicking butt. So, we had a contest last week to give away a Brewmaster Monk battle pet. And what you're supposed to do is message me at wowmonk on Twitter and let me know why you love being a monk. And we had some great entries. And I want to go over our winner, who was actually the first person who messaged us back. So it was very quick. So this is at One Dragon Strike on Twitter. He says, I love my monk because of the finesse required to play Windwalker and the smoothness of Brewmaster. I think I love their smooth brew a little bit better, but yeah. Hashtag love monks. So he is the winner of a Brewmaster pet. I'll send him the thing on Twitter. So congratulations and thank you for participating. Thank you everyone who messaged me. Appreciate that.
Yep, congrats.
Yep, congratulations. You are a winner. Okay. So, Valen wanted me to talk about some help that he's been getting on his blog. And that is nimblebrew.blogspot.co.uk. Getting it right off the top of my head. He wants a shout out to, let's see if I can pronounce this, Nixrin. It's for the help and work she's done on it. And I also want to give a shout out to Final Boss TV. They're a WoW podcast for raiders, and they had Callie and Hina Lover on, who were our guests last episode on our Windwalker Roundtable. He had them on to talk monks, and so they actually showed off monk meditation on there. So I definitely want to give a shout out to them at Final Boss TV on Twitter. So follow them, check them out. They're a great podcast, very high production value, puts me to shame. So, all right, guys. Well, I think it's time to get our furry butts out of here. But first, let's go see those awesome 5-star reviews. Now, Yuki, what did we have?
No 5-star reviews this week.
What?
Yeah, we know you're out there listening and loving the show, so please head on over to iTunes,
5 stars.
leave a review, and if you like today's episode, it would mean a lot to us.
Yeah, please rate us on iTunes. It helps out a lot. Helps out a lot. Please also subscribe on YouTube or on Twitch.tv. So thank you all so much for listening. You can watch us live in 2 weeks where we'll be talking about PvP, learning some PvP with some vicious monks out there. So that's going to be Tuesday, November 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/wowmonk. Or you can catch us after the fact at iTunes, Stitcher, twitch.tv, and monkmeditation.com, where you can buy the host a cup of mana tea for bringing you the best monk discussion on the interwebs. This is not just our podcast. We want it to be yours as well. So please let us know where we can find you in Twitch, Twitter, in-game, wherever else you are. Help us prove the monk community is the greatest community in the World of Warcraft. You can reach out to us individually or email the show at monkmeditation@gmail.com. You can reach the host of the show on Twitter. You can follow me at wowmonk. You can follow NowYuki at NowYuki_CTR. You can follow Air at AirMonk. Daikatsu at DaikatsuCTR, and Sunnier at SunnierBear, and Sunnier'sArtofWar.com. You can also find today's guests at Suplift for Sups, at Affinitii BL for Affinity, and at Reglitch_ for Reglitch. Reglitch. Anywhere else they can follow you guys?
Anyone stream on Twitch?
No.
They could go with to my blog if they wanted, but it's not very good.
Bestmonk.eu.
Bestmonk.eu, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
Shout out to the serpent. Shout out to the serpent accord. I think that's how you say it. That's the best monk theory crafting in the world.
All right. We'll have to definitely feature that sometime. All the math makes my head hurt, though. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this Mistweaver Roundtable. There's been a lot of information, and thank you for joining us a little bit earlier than anticipated, thanks to failure of time zones. So I do want to say that Monk Meditation is a fan podcast of the Monk class of the World of Warcraft. While portions of the program contain sounds and imagery copyright to Blizzard Entertainment, we make no claim to ownership and are not affiliated with Blizzard, though we'd like to, except as being fans of their games. Thank you all for attending Monk Meditation, students. Class is now dismissed.
Fuck disc.
Nerf discs!
Nerf disc.
Yep.